Today on the podcast, we have Sarah Church. Sarah, we are so excited to interview you because Sarah's been in the business for 6 years, but you moved to Minnesota from Iowa 2.5 years ago. And obviously that was during COVID and crazy real estate times, but people say this all the time. It's like really hard to make friends and build networks in the state of Minnesota if you're not from here. And you've just been crushing it. So we're so excited to hear about like how you've created this network in the state of Minnesota and like how you've grown your business to where it is today.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
So excited to have you. So like I touched on it in the intro a little bit, but one of the big things that you've told me that you've used to grow your business is open houses.
Yes.
So like how have they helped you grow your business? Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So when I got into the business, being new, being young, one of the first things I heard from a lot of people were like, buy this lead source and buy this lead source, and kind of just investing in all these internet leads that, in my opinion, aren't really like the best use of your money. And especially when you're getting started, you don't have all this excess money to just pour into these leads that may or may not produce anything. And so I kind of just wanted to maybe find like a better source that I could actually meet people in person, because that's where I feel like I do a better job, is not necessarily calling somebody or meeting a cold lead somewhere online, but actually getting in person and getting to meet people and kind of actually building a connection person to person. That was where I felt like my strength was. And so I just wanted to pour into open houses, because that's one of the only times where somebody is actually going to be coming to you fully expecting to have a realtor talk to them.
It's like the hottest lead,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Compared to an online or internet lead.
Because a lot of times when you're, even if you're prospecting elsewhere that's, different than an online lead, that person is potentially reluctant to talk to you. They're like not expecting it, not really ready for that conversation. But when someone walks into an open house, they're like, we're here, we're ready, we know there's going to be a realtor here. Like, they're just much more ready for that conversation than pretty much anyone else. And they're coming to you versus you having to go to them. So that was one of the reasons that I just really thought open houses would be a really good fit, because it's free. A lot of agents, unfortunately, don't want to do them. So it was not hard for me to find people that were like, yeah, you can do my open houses for me. So it was a free way for me to get exposure not only to other agents and network that way too, but also have people walking up to you and just ready to have that conversation.
So when do you suggest, because as I know, like the market, a house is on the market a little bit longer than it used to be, right? But when do you suggest of when having an open house or when not to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think unless somebody is wanting to keep their listing private or not get as much exposure, which there are certain situations where it needs, they want to keep it on the down low or private or withheld or whatever. But I would say any other reason, I would recommend having an open house. You get more exposure for your listing. You meet more buyers that way, and you get to meet other agents too, because a lot of times they'll do, like I've hosted many open houses where there's overlapping showings during the open house. So it's a great time for other agents to come into. Or if you're just completely booked for showings and nobody else can schedule a time because your seller doesn't want to do overlapping showings, it's a great way for you to just be like, hey, bring your buyers from this period of time because it's going to be open. So there's just really no, like, in my opinion, reason why you would not want to host an open house at least once. And I think the best time to do that is right when you go on the market and it's hot and it's new and people are curious and they want to get inside of it.
And isn't it like true too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like then you have the neighbors going in through the house, and that could be a next potential referral if the house sells, and then they're like, okay, well now I'm interested, because you do have the nosy neighbors who want to see like what it looks like, and but that can be your next referral source.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it was actually really funny. I was hosting an open house one time, and I tell a lot of people the story that are like feeling like they're not getting anywhere with open houses. I had an open house that was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I didn't get anyone on Friday. People came through on Saturday, but it like wasn't really great. Nobody came on Sunday. And as I was leaving on Sunday and I was picking up my open house signs of literally like 6 hours of open houses of no opportunity, a guy from across the street came over and said that he had seen me at the open house working all weekend, and they were thinking about putting their house on the market and wanted to talk to me. And I set a listing appointment for the next week, and I sold the house for over $600,000. So that was not even from the open house, but just from like the consistency of like that person seeing you work that hard over the weekend, and smiling and waving at the neighbor when I was picking up my signs. Like, you literally never know. There's just so many different ways that people can come in, whether it's a neighbor, whether it's, whoever it can be. It's just a great opportunity.
And it's a great way for people to see your signage, not just like in the front yard.
For sure.
It's like all around the neighborhood because people are like turning, and especially if you're working in a neighborhood, people will like see your signs more. And then you have like brand recognition for the, area.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
There's really no downside to it. Like every angle you look at, there's an opportunity.
So one of the things you touched on that last story is that no one had came on Friday or minimal, and then no one had come on Sunday. Yeah. Are there specific times that you suggest? So is it like one? I see a lot that say like 1 to 3. I feel like is that the sweet spot, the hot spot to do an open house? Is it actually, I don't know, mornings, later in the afternoons? What do you see that's been most successful for you?
Yeah. So when I'm doing the same open house for the same house, like on a Saturday or a Sunday, usually my strategy is to do like 11 to 1 on one day and 1 to 3 the next day. And then that way you're kind of getting like, if somebody has something going on in the morning, they can come to the afternoon one the next day, and they don't have to feel like they have to call somebody to get them in a different time of the day. There's really no like perfect time that I think I've found. I think it depends on weather, honestly, what's going on in the city that day. Like there's so many different factors. But I think kind of switching it and doing an earlier one day, if you happen to do the same one twice in the weekend, I think is really helpful.
I've also heard these amazing ideas that people go around and they like door knock for their open house, but they bring like a little like treat or something like that to introduce themselves and say, sorry, there might be a lot of traffic on your street. So I'm going to, here you go. Like,
I wrote that down in my note too, that was one thing that I've seen. Another thing that I love is inviting the neighbors early to like a neighbor exclusive, so they kind of feel a little bit more special and like they get the house to themselves. And so that can be another really strategic way to meet more people and have more exposure on the house.
Have you ever had sellers that want to be there during the open house?
I have not. Some people it come to mind of people that might be that type, but no, I haven't. And I think it's just good for them to not be there, just because it's always hard for buyers to give like constructive feedback when they're not. And that's ultimately what everybody wants, is like the honest opinion. So it's harder for people to give that when they're like looking right at the person who owns the house.
Yeah, totally. So like, what do you offer at open houses that like sets you apart? Because like, when people go in there and show up, how do they remember that it's you?
Yeah. So I think something I like to do differently is I greet everybody at the door, versus just like sitting in the kitchen waiting for people
hiding,
to come in. Yeah,
almost.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just kind of post up at the kitchen table on their laptop, and it's
not as warm and welcoming.
Yeah, definitely. So I love greeting people at the door, opening the door for them, welcoming them in. I think that just like sets the tone for how the rest of my open house is going to be, because I want it to be an experience versus just like something forgettable. And it was funny, I just had clients yesterday actually that told me they popped into an open house over the weekend, and they were like, we just couldn't believe that the agent didn't even like get up from the table and say hi or like greet us. And it's just like, I always forget that there's so many people that do them that way. So when you are trying to stand out and greet more people, it's crazy how like honestly low the bar is on that. And if you can just be that agent, they're going to many open houses, right? It's not just yours. And so when you can be that one that sticks at the top of their head of like, she was so friendly and we got along with her and she greeted us and it was just a different experience, that's going to be what gets that person to call you versus anyone else's open house that they went to.
And I could see somebody like sitting there and having a bad attitude, like, oh, I didn't want to be here anyway, but I have to do this open house.
Totally.
Well, it's like, well, if you have to be there anyway, you might as well make the most of your experience and,
absolutely,
try to get to know people.
Totally. And I think that's like one of the things that I tell people too when they're trying to like get into this is like the mindset that you have as to it's not an obligation to your seller, but it's an opportunity to meet buyers. When you can flip that switch, it just changes everything. Because a lot of people look at it as like, I have to be here for the clients. And it's like, yes, this is something that you should be doing for your sellers to get more exposure. But I mean, think about if you have a great attitude about this, how many awesome buyers you can meet.
And sellers.
And sellers.
Like you said.
Yeah, totally. So I think it's just like flipping that mentality of like why you're there. If I don't have anyone coming in, I definitely will go sit on the kitchen table and content plan or respond to emails or do some things that I like office type work that maybe I don't want to do on a Monday, and then I can sit by the pool for a couple hours because I got everything done on Sunday, So like there's never an opportunity. There's never an open house that's a waste of time.
So how do you take those leads and convert them into clients? Because I think that is probably one of the biggest struggle why people don't like the open houses as well, is because they aren't able to convert it. And so then they don't want to do it or don't want to do it for their team or whatever because they're not able to make that happen. So how do you make it happen?
Definitely. So the open house sign-in tool I think is big. A lot of people just leave like a piece of paper out on the counter, and a lot of people aren't very excited about signing in to something like that.
Well, and if you're at the kitchen table and you just have that there, why would you, like, I wouldn't sign in. I would just be like, I'm going to walk around the house and, you know.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't even see that too. I use an app called Open Home Pro on my iPad. And so you can plug in the address and it pulls it up on the iPad and it's just sitting on the table. It's much more inviting, I feel like, to have something electronic versus just like the old pen and paper style. And then it actually tracks everybody that signs in and it remembers what address that you met them at. So like a year later, if you're going through and prospecting all of your old open house sign-ins, you can say, hey, Brooke, I met you at 123 Main Street 7 months ago. And that client feels like you totally remembered them on a personal level because you remember what address it was. I also like doing that because then I heard a horror story one time of someone that did an open house and got a bunch of sign-ins and then lost that paper. And it's like once you lose that sheet, like you have nobody to follow up with. So having it all electronic is awesome. And I would just say for the follow-up, it's the consistency. Open house leads are not anybody. I think the quickest one that I ever converted was somebody that like bought the house that I met them at. Otherwise, it's months because people start going to open houses way before they're ready to actually buy. It's usually like kind of dipping their toes in the water is when they start.
Yeah.
And so just keeping in mind that like it's a long game. And I know a lot of people getting into real estate are probably expecting most of it to be a long game because that's kind of what real estate is. But I think people hosting open houses sometimes go into it with an unrealistic expectation that it's going to be a quick way to get clients. And I have not found that to be the case. So just putting the person on your Google Calendar for a bi-weekly follow-up is the best thing that I have found to do. It's just that consistency. And sometimes it doesn't even need to be real estate related. When I follow up, I'll just say, or like trying to set an appointment, I should say, it'll be like, hey, rates did a slight increase this week. This may change what you feel comfortable with your monthly payment. Let's have a conversation about if we should still be looking at the same price point. Just things like that where you're adding value. And it's not necessarily like asking for an appointment or asking for a meeting, but just kind of dropping in every now and then so that it's all about just being top of mind. So when they think of an agent and they're getting a little bit more serious, you need to be that first person that they think of.
On that note, have you, I've never heard of this. Maybe people are doing this or maybe I'm just crazy or both. Have you ever thought of having your lender relationships there with you at the open house?
I've definitely done that.
Try to, because get that pre-approval or make, like what they can afford. I mean, it just dawned on me when you said like, oh, the rates piece of it. Have you ever done that? And has that been successful?
Yeah, I've definitely done open houses with lenders before too. So it's helpful. But I find a lot of times, like I said, people are not ready for that step when they come in. So I wouldn't say that's something I do like on a regular basis. But if there's a situation where maybe you want to have someone with you or it's one of your first open houses and you don't want to do it by yourself, that can be a great like person to kind of have tag along.
Totally. I can almost see it. Yeah. I can see people going in there and being like, oh my gosh, can I even afford this? And having somebody there to like validate them that they can actually afford it. Going back to converting those leads to clients though, I'll plug your newsletter a little bit because you sent out a newsletter this like Friday or something, and it was like about the summer patios.
Yeah.
And I like looked at it and I like actually like looked up some of the restaurants and I was like, oh, maybe I'll go there.
That's so great. I love that.
But like not having a real estate conversation, like you said, like you can still add value by like 100%. Having a super fun, cool newsletter because we're trying to put an end to the boring old templates that everybody sends out that your brokerage gives you to send out. Then, so like standing out in that way, I feel like, cause then when you're in somebody's email newsletter, like, they might delete it, but they also are seeing your name show up.
Totally.
Same with like following them on social media. I feel like I was at a networking event with Taylor, you know, and there was the photographer there, not Dan, but the other photographer. Yeah. And she was like, oh my gosh, I forgot my cards. Like, or like, oh, here are my old cards. And it's like, well, you should actually just follow us on social media anyway, because then it's sticky. I am so much more likely to throw away your business card than I am to physically unfollow you on
for
Instagram.
Sure, for sure.
And even if you're not like reaching out to them directly, you're still like, you can be responding to their social or their Instagram stories. You can be like commenting on their posts, like seeing, oh, like you are, you know, you just announced that you're pregnant. Are you looking to like upsize? You know, do you need, you know, more space?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm a big fan of the non-real estate related like touch points, because I think ultimately too, people know, or people work with who they know, like, and trust. And so if they don't know you and like you, they're not going to trust you. And so a big piece of that comes from like just that authentic, this is who I am, this is what I like. And it's not always that constant real estate like material that they're wanting to get in their email. So it's like, oh, I relate with her because she likes drinking wine on the patio. So do I. You know what I mean? Like just that like little stuff makes such a big difference where they feel like they can really like connect with you.
And I heard this one time at like I don't know, some seminar from this guy who's now big at Keller Williams. He used to have that HGTV show where he sold homes to NBA stars or like professional athletes.
Oh, really?
You would know him. You would know him.
I'm sure I do.
He looks like Jason DeRusha, but he's not Jason DeRusha. He's like up there. He's like up there with like the.
I'm sure I know who it is.
He's like the director of education or something like that. Like
yeah.
Corporate. Yeah. Whatever. Anyways, he was talking about Ford, the family, occupation, recreation, and dreams, and how all of those questions always lead back to real estate. Mm-hmm. Family, you're growing or you're empty nester, you need a bigger house or a smaller house. Occupation, you just got a promotion, you want to, you know, get a bigger house, or you are retiring and you want a second home.
Yeah.
Recreation, do you like the lake? Do you want to be closer to water? Do you want to be closer to whatever?
The city.
And then dreams, like what are your dreams? Are your dreams to live, you know, up north one day and sell this house? Like all of those things always lead back to real estate.
For
like,
sure.
Everything, all roads lead to real estate.
Yeah, they really do, because it's something that's it's probably most of the time people's biggest investment. Mm-hmm. And whenever anybody finds out that's what I do, they're always like, how's the market? That's always the first question. Mm-hmm. Like people are very curious about that. So if you can have just like a real conversation with someone and have that circle back to it, that's like my favorite thing.
Absolutely. So we kind of touched on this a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah.
But like, what would you say is like the number one thing that's holding agents back from having a successful open house? Like besides just sitting at the table and like kind of just being like, you know, just there.
Yeah.
But like, what do you think is something that people could all like apply and improve on?
Yeah.
Improve on.
One of the things I hear from a lot of people that have not found success in open houses is that they're doing them so randomly and expecting results. And so I tell people, like, I do at least one almost every single weekend, if not like 2 or 3 or 4. So it needs to be like on a regular basis. If you want that business from it, it has to be consistent. So I think a lot of agents like will listen to a podcast like this and get inspired, and then they'll do 2 open houses next month, and then they'll be like, oh, nothing came from that, and now I'm done. And so that's kind of where I see that, I don't want to say like fail, but like something that people can probably work on a little bit is just having that consistency be there.
Well, because like everyone loves instant gratification,
yes.
right? And everyone loves to convert a lead immediately,
yes.
right? And I also think that the past 2 years, it was easier to convert a lead than it is now.
Absolutely.
So then it is even more challenging of now, like not really wanting to, like the no. Like getting to the no is challenging as a salesperson already, and then when if you're doing something for 2 hours of like from 1 to 3, and then you're not getting that instant like right away, then because I get that as a salesperson, then I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to do my next open house the next weekend because this one didn't work. But being consistent, to your point, is like. And
it's key.
It's continuing to do it and continuing to touch those people and the follow up after. It sounds like what you're saying is what you do is for the long haul to get the business into the door.
Just have it be a habit. Have it be a habit that you're constantly doing open houses. Like it's just the easiest thing that I can say is just have that be like something on your regular schedule that you just do on a regular basis, and it just kind of becomes a part of your weekend. And if you only do, one every other week, at least do it consistently one every other week, just have it, like I said, have it be something that's regularly on your calendar. The other thing I think is that a lot of agents it's easier to be told no, like through the phone or through an email. But when you're standing right in front of somebody and they say no, I think salespeople are so afraid of that they don't even ask. And so I have my other thing that I have witnessed be like an issue with other agents is just afraid to ask for the sale. Like they're standing right in front of you. I've heard so many stories, and I've asked agents too, like how many times have you had a great conversation, really liked the people, totally felt like you hit it off, you didn't ask for the sale, and as they're walking down the street to their car, you're thinking like, I totally missed an opportunity. Like everyone's been there, but that's on us to ask that question. And like people want to be sold to, they want value added, and that's what we're here for. And so it's on us when we can't, close the deal per se. So I think just not being afraid of that no. I mean, I heard from someone one time say, I actually look forward to no's because I need no's to get to yes. Mm-hmm. And I think that's so like such a good way to look at it, like not being fearful of that, but actually like seeking that out, because the more no's you get, the more yeses you're going to get.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And like, thank you for not wasting my time.
Yeah.
Going back to a podcast that we did a few months ago, the 4-point day with Blake Wallace, was like his coaching method. It really reminded me of this because like how you were saying, like, even if you are just like content planning, or even if it is somebody who already has an agent, or even if they are saying no, like those are, you could set a goal for yourself. Like, let's say that like, maybe it's not beneficial, or maybe I'm not getting a hot lead who's going to buy a house this year.
Yeah.
But I am adding one more person to my email list.
Absolutely.
I am adding one more Instagram follower. I am getting one more phone number. And so like maybe setting a goal like that too can like help remotivate you. If you're like, if you don't see the opportunity right away, like change your mindset about the fact that it's an opportunity.
Or even getting like a social media post out of it. Like if the house was staged really cute, or it had an awesome backyard, or you can do a poll for something and get a bunch of engagement. Like there's never a bad opportunity at an open house, in my opinion.
Yeah, because also it just shows people that you're busy.
Yeah.
And like, I think this is a really big thing for brand new agents that ask questions about social media. Like, well, I don't have any listings, so like, what am I going to do? And it's like, well, you can still go on showings and look at things and like post that crazy, like you posted on Instagram today. I'm dating this episode now, but like it was a picture of a house that was, you were like, not all showings are
the backyard.
And it was just like a hoarder's nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And that probably got a lot of engagement. People were probably like, oh my gosh.
What is going on?
Yeah. And then it also reinstills, like, let's say I didn't know you, but you followed me and so I followed you back or something. It reinstills to me, oh, that's a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. Or like, oh, I can go to her if I have a question.
Yeah.
So,
or she doesn't only work with $1 million luxury. Because I think a lot of agents just post like the pretty stuff. And then people that are like, well, my budget is $200,000 and I'm a first-time homebuyer, I can't reach out to her. Like that's totally not how I am. I'm like, I'm gonna show it all. Yeah. Like it's not all glamorous. And so I love just being able to be like more approachable in that sense too, where it's like, no, it's not all pretty, it's not all perfect, all showings are not great, like it doesn't matter.
Also, those people that are buying the $1 million houses are probably also looking at the $200,000 houses for investment opportunities.
100%.
So either way, you're getting like,
for sure,
you're hitting your target markets.
Yes. I just love to be like that authentic where it's like, yeah, authentic and approachable, I think is huge.
I think especially on like social media and stuff like that, we've been seeing like a flip lately on Instagram versus TikTok. Gen Z is no longer installing or downloading the app Instagram. Yeah. They're just not doing it because they want to be on TikTok.
Yeah.
And you see the people that go from TikTok or go from Instagram to TikTok, and you can just tell that they're like still trying to be fake and still trying to like put on that show, and they're not seeing as much success because we go on TikTok to see people's faces, and we go on, and same with Instagram. Like we really do. We all have a desire to like connect with a person.
For sure.
And so when you're showing up that way and you're showing that you're real and you're showing that you're at the open house, like people love to see that.
Yeah.
Duh. I'm like talking about social media 101 right now, but.
They totally do. Yeah. It's just, all goes back to like the connection.
Do you have any like crazy open house stories?
I was going to ask that. Anything you wanted to like, you feel comfortable sharing about like something that happened?
I'm trying to think. That's a good question. I've had some very, very strange people come through, for sure. Just people that make you really uncomfortable and like kind of have to keep your distance and unlock the back door in case you need to sneak out. And
yeah.
I can't think of anything like insane that's happened off the top of my head. But I've had several uncomfortable situations where I've had to step back and leave the room or go outside or something like that.
Make a phone call.
Yeah.
I think we also talked about this too, like off air, about not having your picture on the open house signs.
Yeah.
Like just your name, because then
yeah.
you don't want a picture of a young woman. Like if you are a young woman, you know, open house, people know that you're in the open house alone.
Yeah.
So that's always something. Because sometimes you see that. You see the like open house 100%. And the picture with the name.
For sure.
You know, so you just have to be a little bit careful about that from a female perspective.
Definitely. I just thought of one, if you have a quick second.
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, so this is the craziest thing. I can't believe I didn't think of this first. This happened this summer. So I was hosting.
This summer as in like
right now?
Yeah, like not very long ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was hosting an open house for someone else. A lot of open houses I do are not for my listing. So I'm going in like, never seen this house before, never been here before. I was doing an open house for a duplex for another agent. She did not tell me which side it was going to be on, just gave me the address. And I was kind of assuming like, I don't know what I was assuming, that it was be pretty obvious like which side was because it was vacant versus like owner occupied, or so I thought. So I pulled up and there was an agent walking up the stairs with clients. So I was like, well, I'll just circle the block and give them a minute to like, because it was for a showing. I'm like, I'll give them a minute. I'll go put out open house signs and come back. So I drove around the block, put out my open house signs, came back, parked, walked up to the door. One of the sides was wide open. So I figured that obviously is the side that that agent went into with the clients, right? So I walked in and I'm walking around and it is just like filthy. And I'm kind of confused because I'm like, this is not what it looked like online when I was looking at the pictures to like prep for the open house. And so I was walking through and just kind of like got a weird feeling. I got all the way to the back of the duplex and realized I was in the wrong side. And I heard this dog barking and I turned around and this dog is charging at me. And I ran into the back of the duplex, locked myself in one of the bedrooms, and this dog is like up against the door, like scratching at it, and this lady is yelling at me, screaming like, who are you? Why are you in my house? Like swearing at me. So what had happened was in that time that I drove around the block, the person next door who was renting the side had gone out and let her dog out and left the door open.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't know that. So I walked right into her house thinking that was the one that the agent was in. And I was literally in her bedroom, locked in there. She had no idea who I was, no idea what I was doing there. And I was like so terrified. And so I finally, like I could tell that she had the dog under control. So I like peeked open the door and she was just screaming at me. And I literally just bolted out of there and went right to the other side. And the agent's in there and he's like, oh, hey. And I'm like, you have no idea what just happened to me. And yeah, it was like totally just like a very unfortunate series of events that just happened and happened really quickly. But I just assumed that the door that was wide open was the one that the agent had just walked in. But yeah, I just almost got like mauled by a dog.
So did she come over?
She didn't come over. No. I think she could tell because as I was running out the door, I heard her say something about like being on the wrong side. So I think she knew. Because there's a big for sale sign in the front yard. So there's no way she like doesn't know that that's not for sale.
She probably just thinks you're like a buyer just trying to walk in to look at the house.
I mean, I literally had like my purse, my computer bag, my like iPad. I mean, I was holding a lot of stuff that like clearly I felt like kind of looked like I was a realtor. So I don't know. That was the craziest thing where I just like, it happened so quickly and I got to the other side and I was just like panting and freaking out that I almost got like, and a little about me, I'm pretty terrified of dogs. Like I'm a little, so that like whole thing was just too much.
Well, especially when you're when
it's
an intruder,
charging you and it's like
its job
angry.
is to yeah.
And I was told like I felt bad for the dog. I'm like I'm an intruder. Yeah, you're doing the right thing
here. Your job.
Yeah, you're doing your job, and I'm just here. Messing it up. But yeah, that was the craziest thing that I can think of where I almost got like mauled by a dog because I was on the wrong side of the duplex.
That's crazy.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it was that was interesting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would love to hear more like open house horror stories. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, always just like from our real estate self-defense class, like what they talked about, we did this like about a year ago. Like, you know, if somebody is like wanting to see upstairs and like let's say you are like walking up there with them, which I know a lot of times you don't, but like always let them go first.
Yep.
like always know your way out, like
Yeah.
park your car on the street, like those types of things. So
I always put my purse somewhere close to the front door that's like either in the coat closet or hidden. So if I need to run out of the house quickly, I don't have to like go back to the kitchen to grab my purse. Whenever I'm parking, I never park like in a way that I could get blocked in. Like if someone blocks you, like parks behind the driveway or something. So I always park on the street, like with an easy way to get out no matter how many people are there. So just little things like that where.
Be smart.
Yeah, just being smart about it. Because it's definitely, especially if you're like a young female doing open houses, there's definitely times where that can be unsafe.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Sarah, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram. My handle is Sarah K Church. That's pretty much where I do most of my like content, I guess, is like most active, I should say, on Instagram.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.